Have you ever wondered why we call alcohol a spirit? It's more than a drink. It's a force, one that can open doors and just as easily tear them apart. For centuries, humanity has turned to it for celebration, escape, even transcendence. But behind its golden glow lies a hidden cost most of us never see. What if every sip came with a spiritual price? What if the very thing we drink to feel free is the chain that keeps us bound? Tonight we're going to uncover the truth, the unseen consequences of alcohol, and why your soul has always known the answer. Since the dawn of time, humanity has carried a restless hunger, a longing to slip beyond the heaviness of ordinary life, to silence the storm of thought and escape the ache of existence. In every age, people have searched for a doorway into another state of being, something that would lift them beyond the narrow confines of the mind. Among the many pathways we discovered, one stands above the rest, praised and feared, celebrated and cursed: alcohol. It has been called a gift of the gods, a tool of celebration, a medicine, and at times a poison. But what if behind this shimmering drink there lies a hidden cost far greater than most of us imagine, a spiritual price quietly paid with every sip? We live in a world where alcohol is everywhere. It toasts our victories, numbs our grief, fuels laughter at weddings, and deepens despair in moments of loneliness. Nations produce it by the millions of gallons, industries glamorize it in shining bottles, and entire cultures are woven around its presence. And yet, in this flood of celebration and acceptance, how often do we stop to ask, what is this substance truly doing to us? Not only to our bodies and minds, but to that unseen dimension of ourselves, the spirit, the subtle energy that defines who we are at the deepest level. Few dare to ask, and fewer still want to know the answer. To understand why alcohol has such a strange grip on humanity, we must go back to its very roots. The word itself hides a secret. In Arabic, alcohol originally described a fine black powder used around the eyes, what we now call kohl. But to the ancient alchemists, the word carried far more weight. They saw it as a symbol of essence, the distillation of a substance into its most volatile spirit. In their view, alcohol meant the body-eating spirit, a mysterious force that could be extracted from matter itself. This is why, to this day, we call alcoholic drinks spirits. The very language reminds us that when we pour a glass, we are not just consuming a liquid, we are inviting in an essence that can lift or shatter the soul. Across history, cultures have treated alcohol with reverence and suspicion. The Sumerians and Egyptians offered it to their gods, believing wine and beer could bridge the gap between mortals and divinity. In Greece, wine was sacred to Dionysus, the god of ecstasy and holy madness, a drink meant to dissolve boundaries and let the wildness of the soul emerge. Yet even in these ancient celebrations, the wise knew its danger. For every door it opened, another was quietly closing. For every truth revealed, reason was clouded. The same substance that promised connection with the divine could also lure one into chaos and shadow. In the Islamic world, alcohol became a paradox. Though forbidden as a drink, Muslim alchemists perfected the art of distillation, refining the very process that gave rise to modern alcohol. The great scholar Jabir ibn Hayyan, known as Geber in the West, documented techniques that shaped the future of science and chemistry. Here lies the irony. What was once studied as a sacred art of transformation eventually slipped into common use. Stripped of its reverence, consumed not as a symbol of transcendence, but as a tool for escape. What was once linked to the divine has become for many a chain that binds. But to reduce alcohol to a chemical is to miss its true story. Beyond its effect on the brain or liver lies something more subtle, more insidious: its impact on our energetic being. Every spiritual tradition agrees, humans are more than flesh and blood. We are fields of vibration, wrapped in an aura that mirrors our vitality and connects us with the greater cosmos. This energy body is not just metaphor, it is the very essence of our presence, the unseen atmosphere we carry into every room. And it is here that alcohol strikes its deepest blow. When alcohol enters the system, yes, it clouds the brain and weakens the body. But in the energetic realm, it does something far more dangerous. It tears small openings in the aura, weakening the field that protects us. Imagine your soul as a radiant light, encased in a delicate shield of energy. Each drink punctures tiny holes in that shield, leaving you open to influences that do not belong to you. Rudolf Steiner, the great spiritual philosopher, warned that alcohol weakens the higher self, making us vulnerable to destructive forces that otherwise could not reach us. These ruptures can attract astral parasites, thought forms, even entities that feed on the chaos of addiction. And the more we drink, the more these doorways widen. This is why so many describe the aftermath of heavy drinking not just as a physical hangover, but as a spiritual disconnection, a sense of emptiness, a scattering of the soul. You are no longer centered in your essence, but drifting, like a vessel tossed by a storm without anchor or compass. Even your inner fire, the chakras that sustain your connection to life, become unbalanced. The root chakra, tied to desire and survival, burns too brightly, pulling you into raw cravings and material hunger. Meanwhile, the crown chakra, that luminous point of contact with the divine, dims, severing your awareness from higher truths. In this imbalance lies the danger. You may feel more alive in the body, but you are drifting further from the soul. Ancient masters knew this well. Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras urged seekers to keep body and mind pure if they wish to enter higher states of consciousness. Paramahansa Yogananda declared that alcohol darkens the inner light, obscuring the vision required for true realization. Even modern neuroscience, with no intention of mysticism, confirms this pattern. Alcohol suppresses the very part of the brain responsible for self-awareness, reflection, and choice. In both science and spirituality, the message converges. Alcohol does not awaken, it obscures. And yet, in collective spaces where alcohol flows, its impact multiplies. Have you ever noticed the atmosphere of a crowded party where the drinks run endlessly? At first, laughter seems to sparkle, barriers dissolve, and strangers feel like friends. But as the night wears on, something shifts. The energy thickens, the vibration grows heavy, behavior turns primal. It is no coincidence. When many weakened auras collide in the same space, the collective field plummets. What begins as celebration can quietly transform into chaos. An invisible storm few can see, but everyone feels. Still, there is hope. For though alcohol damages the aura, the human spirit is remarkably resilient. The energy field can heal, balance can be restored, and light can return. Practices like meditation, breathwork, Reiki, yoga, and prayer are not just spiritual exercises, they are medicine for the soul. With intention, patience, and devotion, the tears in the aura can be mended, the channels reopened, the crown rekindled. But the first step is always awareness. To recognize what this spirit we pour into our glasses truly does, and to ask ourselves with honesty, is the fleeting pleasure worth the silent disconnection from our essence? Alcohol's pull on humanity is not a recent phenomenon. It is a thread woven through every era of our history. Across centuries, men and women have turned to it not simply for pleasure, but for escape. It promises to loosen the chains of daily struggle, to blur the edges of pain, to grant us a moment of false freedom. But beneath its glittering mask lies something more troubling. The illusion of liberation that quietly deepens our bondage. Why is it that, despite centuries of wisdom warning us, despite modern science showing us its harm, people still return to it again and again? What force lies behind this magnetic grip? At the heart of it is our disconnection from the self. Since ancient times, human beings have wrestled with the tension of existence, the weight of mortality, the constant voice of the mind, the unfulfilled longing for something greater. Alcohol steps into this gap like a magician offering a counterfeit kind of release. It whispers, "Drink me, and the burden will vanish." And indeed, for a moment, it seems to work. Anxiety melts, insecurity recedes. The shy find courage, the weary find laughter, the fearful feel bold. But what appears to be awakening is only a mirage. The joy it creates is borrowed, the freedom temporary, and the price we pay is separation from the very essence we seek. Hermetic philosophy speaks of humanity's eternal pursuit of unus mundus, the original unity, the harmony of being at one with the cosmos. This is the true home of the soul. Yet when we grasp at alcohol to soothe our inner ache, we make a fatal error. We reach outward for wholeness in a substance that by its very nature depletes. Instead of turning inward toward the divine spark within, we attempt to patch our spiritual hunger with something fleeting. What results is a cycle of emptiness. We drink to fill the void, but the void only deepens. The rope we cling to turns out to be smoke. The ancients were not ignorant of this trap. Plato described the soul's journey as a gradual release from illusion into clarity. Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching reminded us that peace comes not through indulgence or extremes, but through harmony with the natural flow of life. These sages understood something timeless. Real freedom does not lie in substances that alter perception, but in awakening to what has always been within. Alcohol may mimic transcendence, but it never delivers. Instead, it blocks the very doorway it pretends to open. On the psychological plane, the story grows even more complex. Many who reach for alcohol are not simply seeking pleasure, but refuge. A momentary hiding place from inner turmoil. Stress, loneliness, grief. These are heavy burdens, and alcohol offers the illusion of softening them. It sedates the nervous system, releases the tight grip of anxiety, and grants what feels like relief. But it is a relief that postpones rather than heals. It buries wounds instead of cleansing them. It offers comfort while quietly deepening dependency. Like a mask pressed onto the face, it hides the scars for a while but never allows them to truly mend. This is the cycle so many fall into, a revolving door of escape and emptiness. The deeper truth is that alcohol does not create our suffering. It exposes the places within us we have refused to face. It tempts us with forgetfulness, but every shadow we avoid only grows stronger in silence. True liberation cannot come from avoidance. It comes from the courage to meet our inner darkness and bring light to it. Spiritual masters across traditions have echoed this warning. In the Vedic teachings, alcohol is said to diminish sattva, the quality of purity and harmony essential for spiritual clarity. The Bhagavad Gita reminds us that a balanced mind is the key to higher states of awareness, and that anything that disrupts this equilibrium is an obstacle on the path. In Buddhist practice, intoxicants are discouraged because they cloud the mind, preventing the seeker from perceiving reality as it truly is. Buddha himself taught that clarity is the doorway to nirvana, and anything that muddies the mind leads us away from truth, not toward it. Even in mystical traditions that used the imagery of wine, such as the poetry of Rumi, the message was symbolic. When Rumi spoke of intoxication, he did not mean the dulling of the senses with fermented drink, but the ecstasy of divine love that shatters the ego and awakens the soul. The Sufi path draws a sharp distinction. The true wine is the nectar of the spirit, not the liquid in a cup. To mistake one for the other is to wander further from the beloved we seek. Christianity, too, presents this paradox. Wine is central in the Eucharist, symbolizing the blood of Christ and communion with God. Yet many saints and early mystics warned against indulgence, recognizing the danger of excess. St. Augustine called drunkenness an act of self-destruction, a way of turning from the divine light and plunging the soul into darkness. The message was clear: symbols may be holy, but indulgence is not. To drown oneself in the substance is to sever the connection the symbol was meant to preserve. In shamanic traditions, the warnings grow even sharper. Many shamans describe alcohol as a substance that weakens the light body, the subtle shield that keeps a person in balance with the universe. In their view, intoxication opens the door to parasitic energies, entities that feed on the lower vibrations of chaos and despair. To them, alcohol is not just a drink, but a gateway. And what steps through that gateway is not always friendly. When we place these teachings side by side, a pattern emerges. Whether it is the yogis of India, the sages of China, the mystics of the Middle East, or the shamans of the Americas, the wisdom is consistent. Alcohol leads away from clarity, away from balance, away from truth. It pulls us downward, not upward. It severs the axis mundi, the sacred line connecting us to the cosmos, and leaves us adrift. In losing that alignment, we lose access to the very gifts we seek: intuition, clarity, and the ability to dwell in higher states of consciousness. And yet, there is another layer to this story. Some traditions acknowledge that in rare, ritualistic contexts, alcohol has been used as a catalyst for altered states of perception. But even here, the warnings are strong. Only under sacred guidance, with pure intention, and with the utmost care. For the line between illumination and degradation is razor thin. What opens the door to ecstasy one moment can plunge us into despair the next. Without wisdom, respect, and mastery, the substance devours more than it gives. Ultimately, the question is not whether alcohol can bring pleasure. It undeniably can. The question is whether the fleeting spark it offers is worth the disconnection it leaves behind. As Socrates reminded us, self-mastery is the root of all virtue. To surrender ourselves blindly to a substance is to abandon that mastery, to become puppets of forces that cloud the very mind we need to navigate life's mysteries. What begins as leisure often ends as bondage, and what feels like freedom may be the very thing that steals it from us. After walking through the illusions alcohol casts, the spiritual wounds it opens, and the wisdom of countless traditions warning us of its dangers, we reach a question that matters more than all others. How do we break free? How do we loosen this chain, not only physically but emotionally and spiritually? To step beyond the cycle is not merely to stop drinking, it is to awaken into a new way of being, a state of clarity where our choices align with the truth of who we are. The journey begins with awareness. Awareness is the spark that ignites transformation, the moment the fog lifts and we see reality for what it is. For so long, many of us move through life on autopilot, reaching for a drink when stressed, celebrating with a toast, numbing sorrow with another glass. We do it without question because culture normalizes it and the mind craves the relief. But when awareness dawns, when you pause and ask why, the cycle begins to crack. Why do I drink? What am I running from? What emptiness am I trying to fill? These questions may sting, but they are seeds of liberation. For in recognizing the illusion, you take back your power, and what you discover may surprise you. Beneath the craving for alcohol lies not a thirst for liquid, but a thirst for connection, for peace, for belonging, for relief from the inner ache. Alcohol imitates that fulfillment but never delivers. The true solution cannot come from outside, it must be cultivated within. This is the truth the sages have always pointed to. The peace you seek has been with you all along, waiting quietly beneath the noise of the mind. Spiritual practices become vital here, not as rituals of denial, but as doorways to remembrance. Meditation calms the restless storm, revealing the still lake of the soul. Conscious breathing anchors the mind in the present, loosening the grip of anxiety. Yoga rebalances the body and opens channels of energy blocked by years of stress. Prayer, in its purest form, softens the heart and calls upon grace that surpasses human effort. These are not abstract disciplines, they are living tools that restore the energy field, mend the aura, and reconnect us to the divine current flowing through every moment. As this inner alignment deepens, something profound happens. The very cravings that once felt overpowering begin to dissolve, not because you are fighting them, but because they are no longer needed. The shadow loses its hold when the light returns. The emptiness that once reached for a drink becomes filled with something infinitely more nourishing. The radiance of your own spirit. You realize that joy, peace, and courage do not come from a bottle, but from the eternal source within you. This transformation is not easy, nor is it instant. The path requires courage and patience, and sometimes it demands that we face parts of ourselves we have long avoided. But every step on this road is a victory. Each moment of conscious choice builds strength. Each time you breathe instead of reaching for a glass, you are reclaiming your sovereignty. Liberation is not a single act. It is a steady unfolding, a gradual return to your essence. Buddhism offers a powerful example of this path through mindfulness. Instead of reacting automatically to desire, mindfulness invites you to pause, observe, and simply witness the craving without judgment. You breathe, you feel, you let it pass like a cloud in the sky. In that space of awareness, you discover that the craving does not own you. You are not its prisoner. You are the witness, vast and free. This practice, simple but profound, slowly dismantles the reflex of reaching outward for escape, teaching you to rest in the quiet strength within. Christianity speaks in another voice, offering the reminder of grace. Ask and it shall be given to you. This message, echoed across the Gospels, reminds us that we are never alone in this journey. No matter how far we have wandered, no matter how many times we have stumbled, a higher support is always near, ready to lift us if we sincerely call. To walk the path of liberation is not to walk alone. It is to walk with the strength of the divine beside you. Nature, too, becomes a teacher and healer in this process. Alcohol pulls us out of harmony with the natural rhythm of life, but returning to the earth can restore what has been lost. A walk in the forest, the crash of waves along a shore, the silence of mountains at dawn. These are medicines older than any bottle. They purify, they ground, they remind us of our place in the greater whole. When you sit beneath a tree and feel the pulse of life through its roots, when you breathe in the salt air of the sea, something inside remembers. This is what I was looking for all along. The earth offers the peace we chase in vain through intoxication. Another subtle but powerful key lies in gratitude. Many turn to alcohol because life feels empty, unsatisfying, lacking in joy. But gratitude shifts perception. By choosing, even in small ways, to notice what is already good, what is already beautiful, you begin to transform the landscape of your mind. Gratitude does not deny suffering, it reframes it. It teaches you that within every breath lies a gift, and that abundance surrounds you in forms often overlooked. The more gratitude you cultivate, the less you feel the need to escape, because you are already drinking from the cup of life itself. And yet, there is another dimension we must not ignore: community. To walk this path alone is possible, but it is far harder. We are beings of connection, and the journey of healing is strengthened when walked together. Surrounding yourself with those who share your values, who encourage your growth, who hold you accountable with compassion, this can be transformative. A meditation circle, A spiritual group, or simply a few conscious friends can serve as anchors when the storm feels overwhelming. In their presence, you remember that you are not isolated, that your struggle is not unique, and that your victories are shared. Finally, perhaps the most tender piece of this path is forgiveness, especially self-forgiveness. Many who struggle with alcohol carry heavy burdens of guilt and shame. They replay mistakes, regret words spoken, mourn opportunities lost. But guilt, when left unchecked, becomes another chain. To move forward, the heart must soften. Forgiveness does not erase the past, but it transforms it. As Rumi wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." Every misstep, every fall, every shadow has the potential to become a doorway into deeper growth. The very mistakes you wish to hide may be the seeds of your awakening. Breaking free from alcohol, then, is not simply about giving up a substance. It is about reclaiming your essence, remembering who you are, and choosing to live in alignment with that truth. It is a rebirth. Picture a tree in spring. Once bare from the cold of winter, now blossoming with life. The same is true of the soul. Even after long seasons of darkness, renewal is possible. When you choose to step out of the cycle, the branches of your being begin to bloom again, stronger, more vibrant, more deeply rooted in the light. When we begin to see alcohol for what it truly is, not merely a liquid in a glass, but a veil that clouds our spirit, something within us stirs. It is as though a quiet voice, long silenced, begins to whisper again, "You were made for more than this." That whisper is the sound of the soul calling you back home. Liberation is never about punishment or denial. It is about remembering, reclaiming, and stepping into the life that was always waiting for you beyond the haze. Every human being carries within them an infinite reservoir of light, a source that cannot be bought, bottled, or consumed. It is the radiant center of who we are, the essence untouched by suffering or illusion. Alcohol may promise joy, but the truth is that the deepest joy is already yours. It has always been. The tragedy is not that we seek happiness, but that we search for it in places where it cannot be found. The gift is that the moment we turn inward, the moment we choose presence over escape, that hidden reservoir begins to flow once more. This is why so many traditions across continents and centuries have spoken in unison on this subject. Their voices differ in language, but their wisdom is one. The way to freedom is not through intoxication, but through awakening. From the yogis urging purity of body and mind, to the Buddha teaching clarity as the path to nirvana, to the mystics of every culture reminding us that the divine can only be known with clear eyes, the message is clear. When we cloud the mind, we block the soul. When we surrender to illusion, we lose the truth that is nearest of all. And yet, let us be honest, walking away from alcohol is not always simple. It is woven into our societies, our celebrations, even our identities. To step back can feel like stepping apart, like moving against the current of the world. But every great transformation has required courage to move differently, to swim against the tide of what is common in order to touch what is sacred. To choose clarity in a world that celebrates numbness is an act of rebellion, yes, but it is also an act of profound love for yourself, for those around you, and for the divine spark that placed you here. The process is not about perfection, but about intention. Even small steps matter. Each time you pause before a drink and ask yourself, is this leading me closer to or further from my essence? You are practicing sovereignty. Each time you choose presence over escape, you are strengthening your inner compass. Over time, those small choices weave together into a new reality, one in which the need for alcohol fades, not because you forced it away, but because you no longer hunger for its illusion. There is an image I invite you to hold. Imagine standing at a crossroads. One path leads downward, paved with glitter but shrouded in mist, promising quick relief but ending in disconnection. The other path is quieter, less obvious, perhaps more difficult at first. But as you walk, the mist clears. You see further, breathe deeper, feel lighter. That path is the way of clarity, the way of alignment, the way of returning to the truth of who you are. Which path you choose is always yours. And that is the miracle of human freedom. Remember, too, that shadows only exist because light does. Alcohol may have been a shadow along your path, but its very presence points to the brightness behind it. Every struggle with it, every lesson learned through it can be transmuted into wisdom if you allow it. The shadow is not the end. It is the contrast that makes the light undeniable. To choose liberation is not to erase your past, but to let it become the soil from which new life grows. So ask yourself now, with honesty and courage, is the fleeting pleasure of a drink worth the disconnection from your soul? Is the momentary spark worth the dimming of the eternal flame? Deep down, you already know the answer. The very fact that you are here listening reflects a longing for more, for truth, for wholeness, for the kind of freedom no substance can grant. That longing is sacred. It is the compass of your spirit pointing you toward home. And home is not far. It is not hidden in some distant future or lofty state. It is here, in this breath, in this moment. To awaken is not to add something new, but to uncover what has always been. The peace you seek is within you now. The joy you crave is within you now. The strength you thought was lost is within you now. Alcohol may have blurred your vision of it, but it could never erase it. That light cannot be destroyed. It only waits for you to see it again. So let this be the turning point. Let this be the moment you choose clarity over illusion, presence over escape, sovereignty over dependency. Not because someone demands it of you, but because your soul deserves it. Because you deserve to live in alignment with the truth of who you are. Because you were not born to stumble in shadows, but to walk in light. The choice is always yours, and with every conscious choice, you are writing the story of your own liberation, a story in which you are not the victim of a substance, but the master of your own consciousness. A story where the compass of your spirit guides you unerringly back to the eternal source within. The question remains, will you take this step? Will you walk beyond the veil of intoxication and return to the infinite clarity that has always been waiting for you? The invitation is open, the path is before you, and the light is already rising within.